Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today we are sitting down with Kate Galliet. Kate is the powerhouse behind Fit for Real Life and the author of Becoming Unbreakable, How to Build a Body You Love to Live in. Kate helps people to build their body to be strong, capable, and unbreakable so they can live as fully, deeply, and energetically as possible. Kate has taken what she has learned along her own journey and is teaching it to others. And she is creating a better world by helping others feel better in their own bodies. And we're excited to be talking with you today.
I am thrilled to be here with you. Thank you.
And question that I should learn to ask before I hit record. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yeah, you did. That was great. But having been a Galliet for 41 years now, I've heard it every which way from Sunday. And as a younger person, I would be very irritated when people wouldn't get it right. But it is what it is. We do our best, right? But you got it right. You did good. It was fantastic.
I think of it as soon as I start talking and then should have asked earlier.
Yeah. And as a Quran, I totally understand. I've been called everything under the sun.
I bet. Well, I'm thrilled to be here with you guys.
We're thrilled to have you. So, Kate, you've been sailing through life, figuring out what resonates with you and experimenting to find out what fits in your life. So we'd love to hear what started you on your pirate journey and then what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. It's such a fun question, but it's not a very fun start for me to answer where this started. But that's the story. So my father died when I was 17 and it was very tragic. And I was involved in a very painful way with watching that all happen. Obviously that sucked and was tragic. And however, it became the catalyst for the rest of my life. And I didn't even know it. I mean, I was only 17 when it happened. I didn't even process it at that point because who can at 17? But it started doing some work inside me that I didn't know was happening for a number of years. After that period of time too, I had gone from kind of this athletic kid and sports-based person and was in school to get a Bachelor of Science in exercise science. But always had kind of some lingering health challenges and infections and issues that got worse and worse and worse. Kind of after that point when my dad passed. And I found myself by my early 20s, or not even 21, having doctors telling me, oh, well, this chronic infection, sickness, rundown, lethargy, dark circles under your eyes, all kinds of issues, medication that you have to take forever. That's just how you are. And I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I didn't get why that didn't make sense to me other than something inside me was like, I don't want, that sounds devastating. I don't want that now at the age of 20. And it was sitting with me. I was really worried, gosh, what if this is my path? I'm going to be sick, injured, lethargic. My world will shrink. That's it. 20. Hope it was a good 20 years because the rest are going to suck. And so I was ruminating on that at the same time as I got my first job as a personal trainer after college. And I met my first two clients and they were older folks, 50 something and 60 something. And they were like, I don't want this notion of being too old to do something to hold me back. One was a former mountaineer kind of guy and would go off on these big adventures. And he was getting older and was like, I want to keep doing this, but I don't know how to make my body do it. And the other one was this wonderful woman who everybody her age kind of gained weight, got sedentary, did less, was just kind of blah. And she's like, I don't want that, but I don't know what to do. So it was this magical thing coming together because all of this was coalescing together where I was realizing, wait a minute, it can't possibly be too late for me because I've actually seen a too late moment. And this is not that. I'm not dead. Dead is the too late moment. unfortunately. And that's not where I am. So if I'm not where I saw a parent be, then it can't be too late for me. And lo and behold, there are these two people who also are like, I don't want it to be too late for me to be too old to do something. And it all kind of came together right then, where I could take my expertise with the body, which I've since obviously learned tons more in those 20 years, but I knew enough to know how to help them make their body better, which made me realize, oh yeah, I can help me make my body better. And I started creating all of the things I teach today to help people be unbreakable, from the explorer's mindset to the signal response principle, to the type of training you do, to how it's not just about your workouts or your diet to be unbreakable. It's your entire life. It's the way you view the world. It's the stories that you've made for yourself, the rules you've set for yourself, and set about undoing all of that for myself. And I've now had 20 plus years of practice at that I can look back on with some hindsight and go, wow, that really was where my journey began, at least this journey that I'm on now. And as much of a bummer as it was on so many fronts, still is to this day, I was able to make something out of it. And for that, I'm really grateful.
So what are you doing now with your work?
So I work with clients in person and online in both one-on-one settings and in kind of group program settings. And then of course the book that folks can read that I just published. And so my goal with all my folks I work with is to take what's not working for them and help them identify what's standing in their path, and then create the programming that helps them do that. And yes, we focus a lot on physical training. I am a personal trainer. I'm a movement specialist. But we're also looking at like how we're approaching our body care and our training, and what other things we could be doing in our lives to support ourselves. You know, I get a lot of folks who are really driven, whether they're type A athlete types or they're people who are really injured or sick, and they've really been run down for a long time and they're frustrated. And both of those groups I find are so motivated to find success and achieve something that they sometimes come at it with a very rigid style. And so part of our work is learning how to train our bodies where we're not so demanding that they do what we want them to do. And then we actually give our body a voice in the conversation, because it is conversing with you all the time, whether you like it or not, and whether you listen or not. And so part of my coaching is to help folks learn like, oh, I can hear my body. Thus, I can communicate with my body. Kate can help me learn the right exercises, which then I always like to make it so that my people can take this knowledge with them. I'm not a gatekeeper of this. Like, I want you to know this is how you take care of your body. These are some exercises you could do if you feel XYZ situation in your body. And so through that coaching, whether it's in a very personal setting or kind of a more group setting, my hope is to help people find a better way to experience living in their body and to feel really good and be able to do more as they get older rather than less. I just talked to a gal today who, gosh, what a wonderful person, and really seeking some answers. But she was like, I'm 30 now and I'm really feeling like my body's falling apart. And I feel like that's way too young. That's way too young. 60 is way too young, but 30, that's too young. No, we got to change that story and help you find a new way forward.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay. Both at the same time. I used to work in childcare, and I would be working with people that they'd be like, oh man, my body, I hurt all the time, going to making doctor's appointments, set, and like, I don't know what to do about this. I'm sick. And in my head, I'm thinking they're at least in their 30s. And then I end up finding their young 20s. And I was like, this is a good, like, if we keep on this path, you're gonna be 60 and never having had the opportunity to really live life, because this is the story you have. So yeah, to get stuck in that mindset at such a young age it's hard. It's mind-blowing in a way, but also I feel like a lot of people do that too. They start seeing aches in their bodies and they're like, this is it. Now it's all downhill from here.
Yeah. And you can't blame people, right? Because what's the messaging that we hear? I mean, doctors were telling me that's just how you are. I'm sure
Mhm.
they meant well, but as I have often looked back on, and I thought, I'm sure they meant well, but those were not the right people for me to be listening to. I'm glad I stopped listening at some point. And commercials, other people talking, like everywhere you go, you hear these two really common myths that I talk a lot about in the book. The first myth is that it could possibly be too late for you. And too old is a version of too late. And often it sounds like this. Well, you're 40 now. What did you think your niece would feel like? Like as if that's empowering at
Mhm.
all. But it also can feel like, well, it's too late now. I've had this injury for 20 years. It's probably too late to fix it. I'm bone on bone in my knees. I hear that all the time. It might be too late to change that, but there's always things we can change. There's always things we can improve. That's what bodies do. They continue to respond until the day we die. And the second myth is that bodies are too complicated. How often have you heard that, oh, you need to get the surgery. That's just all there is to it. That might be true, but have you taken the journey to figure out what else can I do first? People tell me I've done everything. And as a coach of 20 years who has a wide array of stuff that I teach people, depending on what they need, I'm like, I bet I can bet you haven't tried everything. I bet I can give you at least one thing you haven't tried. And at the very least, we can try it and we can experiment with it and see, did it do anything for you? It might, and it might give you one iota of improvement. But if we can make one iota of improvement, that means there's more we can do. So I love when people break free from these myths that it could be too late for them or that they're too complicated for them to figure out. Neither are true. But if you were believing that up until today, when you hear this podcast, you're not alone, because most of us have heard that messaging. I don't know about you guys, but I've had family members kind of portray the narrative of like, well, you slow down as you get older. I've had friends do it. I've had all kinds of people who want to share their opinion, because that's what people do. They share their opinion, whether it's welcome or not. But you don't have to believe that, because we know from a biological standpoint, it's not true.
Mhm. And do you think it's that messaging that's like kind of causing all of this, like these young, like late 20s, early 30 people that everything hurts and they think it's over? Or do you
I
think
think
there's
that's
more to it?
I think there's that. I think that's one part of it. I think another really important part is that nobody gets a good education about how to care for their body. I don't care what school you went to. Maybe you had a parent and you were really lucky. They were like really into like great fitness, and not in a way that was like, oh, you're going to do restrictive dieting because that's what mom or dad is doing, like good fitness, God love my parents dieted too. So it's okay. I was around that diet culture as well. But that's part of it. Like gym class in school, if you even have it, is not really teaching you anything great for a variety of reasons, most of which are policy based. At home, if you have a parent who didn't know how to cook or exercise, how will they teach you?
Mhm.
And if their parent didn't cook or exercise, how could they have learned? Right. So you have to have this ownership of deciding you're going to learn these skills because you didn't get them in school and you might not have gotten them at home. I think that's another big part of it. And yeah, we can look at things like sedentary behavior, and we don't do manual labor jobs anymore, but as humans, we've been living in kind of this more sedentary culture for quite a long time now. We've had the time to figure out how to keep active and keep our bodies moving in the direction we want them to. So I try not to put too much blame on the fact that we're all mostly sedentary these days. And I look more at like, I think it's a matter of like the stories you hear and the education you don't have about what's possible. I think if we can take care of those two things, we'll solve a huge part of the overwhelming number of people who feel like it is too late for me. My body hurts. I'm 25. My low back has been killing me for 5 years. These are all common things, but we have to decide, no, I'm not believing that anymore. And I'm willing to take the flack from everybody around me who isn't going to do it, who will tease you, make fun of you, tell you stupid, tell you the myths. Like people are going to do that because there will be people who don't want to go on that journey or aren't ready yet. Maybe you have to be willing to stand strong and be like, that's okay. This is what I'm doing. It works for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm also a trainer at a gym and at a physio clinic. And I mostly work with, I would say, what I call middle-aged women. And I love women that have never done any sort of fitness before in their life when they come to you, and like just getting to teach them, first of all, how to move, and how surprised they are generally, like that they're able to do these things. And I've had so many women tell me, like, if someone just taught me this earlier, right? Like if I just known earlier that I could do these things, like how different would my life be? And so like I really appreciate that message, because you're right. Like the only reason I learned was because I don't even know how I ended up in a gym. Like someone started teaching me and I fell in love with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love that message.
It's really life-changing, really. And I mean, I'm not being like excessive in saying that it's life-changing. It really is. Cause same, I'm meeting people every day who are like, wow, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago. And I'm like, me too, but you're here now. And that's what matters. Like how I felt. I wish I would have found the doctors who did actually help me 10 or 20 years before I actually did, but I didn't. And thus that becomes part of my story. And so that's why I tell my folks too. And like, you probably do too. Wow. Well, thank goodness you're strong now. And you know that you can do it now, because from here on out, that's who you are: strong, capable, confident, and someone who could say, I wonder if I could do that, versus someone who's like, I probably shouldn't do that, like lift a heavy box or something like that.
Yeah. And I love how it spills out into other areas of their lives. Like I have clients that then all of a sudden with this newfound confidence going for like promotions and like leaving a relationship that's not serving them, and doing all of these things that like seemingly have nothing to do with fitness, but really comes down to like that confidence that you get to build in them, which is amazing to see.
I love that. And it's really true, because I mean, gosh, what an empowering thing to expand the quality of your life simply by going to find a form of movement and exercise that makes you feel good and confident. It makes you feel less pain. It makes you feel stronger. Like I say in my book, like there's going to be a time in your life, probably several, where you are called upon to use skills that are not physical, but that you cultivated during your physical workouts, when the day was hard and you didn't want to work out, but you were dedicated and you did it anyways. When you stopped and listened to your body at that little nagging ache that you noticed and changed course instead of barreling ahead like you always do. All of these subtle traits are really useful. And what a better way to build them and then have them at the ready when life hands you a doozy and you're like, oh my God, I need to call on everything I have as a human to get through this.
Totally.
Yeah, it wasn't until the last couple of years of my life that I really even started doing anything. And so also that it's not too late to learn something new. Now I keep wanting to learn new things, and I'm 39 now. And like I've picked up climbing with my husband just a couple months ago. I bought roller skates a year ago, new things that a few years ago I would have been like, no, I'm too old to do. I'm way past that. Now being able to have that ability to be like, no, I want to learn new things. I have lots of life ahead. So being able to change that story has been huge for me. And I imagine for your clients, like that's a big step for them too, to be like, yeah, I can do all of these things and I have plenty of life left.
Yeah. Isn't that so neat that like, you don't have to, there is no filter of should I or could I? It's just, I want to try roller skating. I want to try climbing. I want to try, like my first client, she's like, I want to hike Kilimanjaro. And I was like, what? Okay. So where did that goal come from? But it had always been a goal. And she'd always just left it in the back of her mind. Oh, I'm getting too old for that, whatever. But you don't, when you get your body to a point where you love living in it and you do feel unbreakable in body, mind, and spirit, you don't have that filter of should I or shouldn't I? You just have, I want to, so I will figure out a way. And I may not get all the way. That's the other thing. You really stop being attached to the outcome and you start being like, wow, just the process of trying is so cool. And I learned so much and I get so much out of it. And I love that we are alive at this point in life, because think of decades ago where like this was unheard of to say, I am 40, I'm going to do jujitsu. I'm 65 and I'm going to be a power lifter. You've seen those videos, those viral videos on the internet of like the granny who's lifting like a really heavy barbell. That would not have been a thing decades ago. And so like, what a neat thing to be alive for. And I really think you change the world when you get a majority of people, or even a large minority, frankly, of folks who are like what we're talking about. You change everything about how the world operates, because now you've got examples walking around who are doing exactly what you said, Kristen. I just wanted to try it. I wanted to take up climbing. See how it is. I don't care. 39 is not old. Why wouldn't I try it? And so then other people go, maybe I should try something. Maybe there's something to this. And I think that's how you make a groundswell of change in the human population to happier, healthier, stronger, more capable, resilient human beings.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of leads really well into this question about social rebellion. What social rebellion are you starting with your work? Are you creating with your work?
Yeah, I think that does lead in really well. My pie in the sky dream as a kid that I hung on to as an adult, which you all know of running online businesses or businesses in general. People always say, oh, you can't help everybody. You got to niche down into something smaller, which I understand from a business perspective. However, I think you change the world when you try to help everyone in the world in some small way to enjoy living in their body more. And maybe in the hedonistic way of like, go have a great time and, revel in life and drink all the good wine, but more so in the notion of you don't feel like such an adversary to your body. I mean, think about your worst day where you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. We've all had those days. And you're just like, everybody is your enemy. You're like, the husband did not do the dishes, and you make a big stink about it. And your coworker is being super annoying with whatever they're doing, which is not annoying. It's just annoying to you. Like, you don't go through the day as well. And you see the world as a fight, and you don't see as many opportunities. Imagine going through the world like that, thinking of your body that way. Ugh, my stupid body, my back hurts again. I'm old. I'm overweight. I'm whatever I hate about myself. Imagine your view on the world. If you go through the world that way, I live that way. My body and I were like not friends for a very long time. That's how I learned so many of the things I learned today, because I had to have realized that my entire existence was going to be negatively affected by how I was living in my body, because how I live in my body is how I approach my entire existence. How I work, like I was saying earlier, how I work out influences how I treat others, influences how I handle nutrition and how rigid I am about my diet, influences who I'm open to having a conversation with and how much compassion I give to somebody else. So when it comes to like a social rebellion, I really do think that a tiny change in every individual on the planet, one, is possible. Maybe not everyone. I can't get to like Antarctica. So they'll have to get on the internet or something, but everybody else, one small change to start learning that your body is always responding, which means you can always influence it, which means if you don't like what you're experiencing, you're in charge. You can change it. And that can change your whole life, which in turn changes the world.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite pirate quotes is that it's my favorite. I'm having a hard time remembering the wording, but the way to change the world is to throw a better party than those trying to destroy it. So that to me, that goes along with that, by changing the world, by getting people to find that enjoyment, whether it's, like you said, whether it's going out and partying or whatever, or it's finding ways to move and realizing, I can move in my body and have fun, and I'm not stuck in this static state. So I like that.
I like that quote. That's really, it's like, what is that old saying? You attract more bees with honey, like inviting people to the party of living in a great body that you enjoy. And that doesn't mean your body will always look how you want it to look or do what you want it to do. And in fact, sometimes it will downright suck, because the journey of being the full ownership caretaker of your body, I take full ownership, means you take ownership of everything that is going on. And sometimes stupid stuff will happen that you couldn't have seen coming, like a car accident that you're in. And you're like, I didn't ask to have to go through 12 weeks of rehab after a car accident,
Mm-hmm.
or things where you're like, you made some choices and now these are the consequences of your choices coming to say hello. But you learn from all of these things. So it's not always going to be fun, but when you take full ownership as the caretaker of your body and you do feel unbreakable, you see even the rough times and the tough times as, this is what I have. I'm going to make something of this. I will grow stronger with this. There will be times where it's taking forever. When I tore my ACL from a climbing fall, like it took forever, but in the grand scheme, it really didn't. But there were days, and this is where the compassion comes in too for ourselves, which then gives us compassion for the world. When you realize that it won't always be easy and that some days will be really tough because mentally you're having a rough day, or the pain is worse today, or it just feels like the mountain, you're never getting to the top of it. You're constantly climbing this mountain, or it looks like it's easier for someone else. Those are moments too for you to learn about yourself and to learn how to be compassionate for yourself and to figure out how you can comfort yourself and motivate yourself and inspire yourself to keep going and to not give up. In the grand scheme, my ACL recovery was really fast compared to a lot of recoveries. But in the darkest moments, what I felt when I really investigated, and I used my explorer's mindset to do that, which we can talk about that later if you'd like, was to investigate why I felt that way. Why did it feel so bad on those days? And what I realized was, well, I felt so bad because I was worried. What if I can't go in the outdoors anymore the way I want to? Big adventures, right? Big, long backpacking trips, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, well, what if I can't do that? Well, then I wouldn't have an outlet for feeling like how I want to feel. I'm feeling happy. I feel so happy in the outdoors. Okay, well, what if that would happen? Well, as I work through these what ifs, it turns out I was initially worried that I couldn't go in the outdoors, but that eventually led me to, because being in the outdoors is a part of who I am. And then I could realize, oh, that's actually a pretty valid thing to have some concern about. What if I can't be who I am anymore? That also made it easier to unpack. Oh, well, I'll always be who I am because I will always find a way, whether it's changing how I engage with the outdoors or altering my life in some way to experience things in a different way, or realizing I'll probably be able to go in the outdoors again. It just might not be as soon as I want to. And it is important to be who I am. And I'm so glad that I was concerned about myself enough to say, wow, I really hope I can still be me. And in turn, that allowed me to actually not feel bad on those worst days anymore, because I was like, oh, let's look at me, with the me who lives inside me. Let's look at her with some compassion and some understanding. And I'm just saying to anyone listening to this today, like, doesn't that sound better than hating your body? I mean, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's something that kind of reminded me of this. There's a difference between like roles we play and our true identity, right? So your role, like maybe you had this role of someone that goes on these really long, backpacking adventures, and if that was to end and you weren't able to do that anymore, is that truly going to impact who your identity, what your identity is? And maybe your identity is more closer to like a nature lover. And like you said, you would find other ways to enjoy nature and be in nature, even if you couldn't do that specific role anymore. I think we get really caught up and think that these roles, whether that's a coach, a teacher, whatever, that these things are our actual identity and who we really are, when they're not. They're roles that we play. And we can enjoy the roles that we play, but how does that impact your true identity?
I love that. Yeah. It's one of my favorite blogs I ever wrote is titled "Is I Am a True Statement?" And it's like asking yourself, like, I am a CrossFitter. I am a vegan. I am an outdoors person, and asking yourself every now and again, is that true? Is that still true? And is it a new season of life? I think you hit something really interesting there, that like, there are various roles we take on through life and seasons of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And boy, do we all want to stay in summer forever. Well, maybe not if you live in a hot climate. Maybe you're like, I like fall the best. Either way, your favorite season, you want that one the longest. Of course we do. But The beauty of that season is that it's not that all the time. You're like, yes, it's spring, because winter was horrible and gray. And now it's spring and you feel the change. And we have to do that with our bodies too. Like I said earlier, you might not be able to do something you love to do anymore because you had a certain injury or something happened, but that doesn't mean life has closed off to you. There are so many other things you can do. And all you have to do is open a social media app, find a website or a handle that shares good news stories, and you will find people doing amazing things under circumstances that are really challenging. That's inspirational. And we can all do that in our own little way to say, well, this challenge I'm facing is my little challenge. And no, comparing your challenges. No saying, well, that person faced a really hard challenge. Why am I complaining about my life? No. Your challenge is your challenge. This is what you're in your season. Maybe you'll get a really hard challenge in the future, but this one is the hard one you get right now. Don't compare it to anybody else. Just use it to grow, learn. And yeah, like as you said, maybe it's time for a new role in your life.
Still letting that one sit. That was, thinking about how the challenges, they're yours. We all face different things. Just like if you were to talk about the challenges in your life, like trauma versus the big T traumas and the small T traumas, we all have them. Some are big, some are small, and they all build up. But if we were all to compare, like, what I went through was a small T trauma. It doesn't compare to that big T trauma. It really limits you to being able to go forward and make changes in your life. If you're like, that wasn't bad enough, like I shouldn't be complaining. So yeah, I like the way that you worded that. Like, this is yours. It's your season. It's what you're going through. And it doesn't matter what somebody else has gone through. This is yours.
Isn't that so funny that as humans, we I get why, but we spend a lot of time analyzing stuff and trying to put it in its little place, organize it. Well, Kristen had this one challenge. Mine's not quite as, I should be tougher because Kristen's handling something way worse than me. We're constantly doing that instead of engaging with the thing that we need to engage with and the issue that we're facing. And whether it's, procrastination or fear or frustration that we haven't dealt with, we do it for a variety of reasons, right? But it is funny that we do that so much. And really, I don't know about y'all, but getting older, moving out of the 20s into the 30s and it's now 40s, you really do start shedding some of that as you get older, just because you've been around long enough to be like, everybody has stuff that they're doing. You look behind everybody's front door, you're going to find some stuff in their house. Oh, they have challenges as well. They have things they're dealing with. And so the grace that you give other people, give that to yourself. That's to me, a really important part of being unbreakable, because it's your only body to live in. Do you really want to spend your entire life not giving yourself grace and compassion? And at the same time, learning what is grace and compassion and what is, I'm not really holding up my end of the bargain that I made with myself. I just started a new weightlifting program. I'm so excited about it. If I was struggling to get it in and I was like, man, I keep missing those workouts. I need to face that and say, what's going on here? I'm going to give myself some compassion here, but I'm not going to let myself off the hook with trying to figure out why I'm not doing what I said I really wanted to do. Even there, though, you have this opportunity to say, well, why am I not doing what I said I really wanted to do? And you can find some good answers. And you might discover some things that help you understand yourself better, which in turn makes you fitter in the broadest sense of the word, because you are now a better, fitter caretaker of yourself just because you know yourself better.
Yeah. So what are some of the bold actions that you've taken to get you where you are today?
Bold actions, you say, huh? Deciding to take my successful gym coaching programs. I loved my gym in Illinois. They were so great. Great people, great gym. It was all just wonderful. But to take all that and put it online and then move to an entirely new state was one of the more bold actions I've taken in my life, because everything about that didn't make logical sense. because folks don't realize, maybe they are today, but 8 years ago, people definitely didn't realize this, that building an online business is the same as building a brick and mortar. It just happens to be on the internet. So when you start online versus brick and mortar, you're doing everything again, trying to like get the whole system set up. So I created all this work for myself that I'm glad I didn't know I was creating, because I probably wouldn't have done it if I had known. But also to move, because like everything was going well. I had great clients, finances were fine, house was good, everything was great. But I could feel inside me like I need to do something. There's something more I need to do. Like I'm being called to something. Something's not sitting happy and right with me anymore. And I really didn't know what that was. And like what we do, we tend to say, well, what do I see other people doing? And people were making online programs in my circle of friends. And I was like, well, okay, well, I think I'll do that. That sounds good. But that wasn't the only part of it, because as I started making that online program, I realized, because I listened to my inner, whatever you want to call it, spirit, soul, guide, voice, anything, that it was like, no, it's not just your work that's not getting you where you need to go to this next phase of life. It's your location as well. And I didn't know but 2 people in Utah when I came out here to look at it. But I felt something when I came here to just check the place out. And I was like, I need to move here. I need to do whatever it takes to move here and to move my entire business online so that I can keep earning a paycheck while I do this. The amount of upheaval that was on every single area of my life was shocking, to say the least. But there's no possible way I would be the person I am today had I not done that. And like we've talked about, you were saying earlier about how the women with fitness and they get strong and then they realize they're confident in other ways. Taking those actions to close a successful gym, move everything online, get rid of my beautiful little house, move to a place where I pretty much knew no one. That allowed me as a professional, but more importantly, as a person, to become what I was supposed to become. My business really hit its, energetic stride with like, oh, this is how I want to talk to you all. This is how I want to present the information I want to share with you. But also like, I really believe that our life influences our work, especially when we're entrepreneurs, probably as employees too, but I haven't been one in so long, I can't speak to that. And so as my life started to change dramatically and I started to become more of who I was, then of course it influenced my work, which in turn then influenced back to me. And I'm sitting where I am today because I did that. And I had no idea when I did it. I thought I was just changing my location and how I did my work, 2 very simplistic things that ended up changing literally everything about my life.
Funny how a move can do that.
Life's funny like that. Yeah, you get pulled in directions, and it takes some bravery to listen. And I think a lot of people have that bravery and they do take that. Sometimes they don't acknowledge the fact that they've been brave to do something different or do something new. But I think we all have that. And the more we can practice that, whether it's in a fitness practice, trying roller skating, starting weightlifting, working with a coach, if you've never done that before, it makes you more likely to try it in other areas of your life.
Yeah, that I've noticed in my head a few times where I'll look back at myself and be like, or I'll have a thought in my head like, oh, I'm not very, not confrontational, but I don't like having those rough conversations. And then all of a sudden I'll remember, I'm like, no, you did really well with having this rough conversation. Like you did this one, you did that one, and having memories come back in of like, oh no, I have done that. I think our brains sometimes also filter out some of those things where it's like maybe in the moment, in this phase of life, in this season, I'm not feeling very confident in this area of my life. And so therefore I think that I haven't been that way my whole life. And then turning that back on and being like, no, you actually can do this. You have done it before. So there's some of that I've caught with myself too, like that, the opposite way of the filters as well, of like, I've turned it off, and being able to recognize that I have actually done this helps helps me remember that I can I can have a tough conversation. And guess what? I've survived everyone. So
I love that. That's so true too. We're really good at forgetting the things we've accomplished before.
mm,
And like just taking that pause to be like, wait a second, I have done this. I can do this. It requires that you take the pause.
mhm.
And I think in so much of life, not just fitness or body care or anything, we're going a million miles an hour, even if we're trying to slow down in life and, meditate and take a moment, right? And enjoy everything. We're still moving really quick and our thoughts are moving even quicker. And I agree. I can relate to that. I have had so many experiences where I've been like, I'm not this. And usually, of course, it's around like a frustration of some kind or a challenge, like a worry, like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. It's going to be a bad conversation. Or I'm not capable of doing this one hard thing. It's so funny how that comes up. And I definitely have felt that way. And it feels almost like disassociative for a hot moment because I'm like, I'm hearing myself say whatever belief I have that isn't true because I've done it before. And I'm living in the body with the tiny whisper that's like, hold on, what you're saying is not true. Hold on, stop for a moment. And I don't know about you, I literally have to stop and be like, okay, can you two talk inside so that we can move forward with this? And I think that's why when I was younger, I really valued, I should get back to this, taking little post-it notes and like writing something on it that helps me, like a quote or you are great or you are powerful, or remember that you can have hard conversations, to use your example, and then sticking it on the bathroom mirror for like a couple of weeks at a time. That routine of seeing it for me is really helpful. And I'm just realizing this now. Perhaps that's why I always tell my clients, like, we're going to put your exercise equipment in a place where you see it. And we're going to put your workouts on your calendar so that you see it. And we're going to make your life enriched with things that remind you, oh yeah, I'm building this body that feels really good. And I'm taking great care of myself. And I'm going to notice when I feel better. And I'm going to notice when I don't feel better, so that we're always in tune and paying attention. Perhaps that's why I do that with them, because I remembered what it was like in some subconscious level, being like, oh yeah, Post-its were helpful. I really like Post-it notes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't use Post-it notes, but we definitely use affirmations like with our clients. And one of the questions that I like to have either ask myself or have my clients ask them, rather than, is it true? Is this accurate? It's slightly different, right? Like, they all hate me. Is that accurate? Like, because if you ask yourself, is it true? That feels very opinion biased, right? But is this accurate? Does everybody in this world hate you? Well, no, of course not. That's not accurate, right? So yeah, I love that you're, using both those questions and using those affirmations. And you're right. If you see it, you're going to use that more.
Accurate is so good, because I love that. I haven't heard anyone say that ever. So I think that's fantastic, because it takes, like, I don't know if you guys have done Byron Katie's The Work ever, which I really enjoy. She's like got 4 questions and you use that to do your personal growth. And one of the questions is it true? And whenever my therapist and I would work on that, she'd always be like, I'd say, here's the belief I have. So-and-so is a jerk, whatever, whoever I'm dealing with that day. She's like, is it true that so-and-so is a jerk? And I'd be like, well, maybe it might be true. Who am I to know? Could be true. And she's like, stop it. Is it true? I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, exactly. You don't know. That's the answer. You don't know if that's true. And then we go on to the rest of the questions, right? But I would always chuckle to myself, because I don't know if we can swear on this podcast, but the little shit inside of me is like, might be. They could just be who am I to say if it's true? I bet it is. It might be. I can't say for sure, but let's assume that it is. And the point with the Byron Katie's work, right, is to like say, you don't know if it's true. So act as if maybe it's not. Maybe like think something different. So I like accurate a lot, because that instantly in my brain, when you said accurate, I was like, oh, this is so similar to how I talk about pain with my clients, because pain is what we call multifactorial. Basically, if you think of all the things you experience in a day that you're aware of and that are in your subconscious, all of them can influence whether or not you experience pain. This great quote that I always cannot say the whole thing because it's too long, but I'll give you the basis of it. It's a quote about pain that somebody used a few years ago, which became adopted as like, this is a good way to talk about pain with clients. Was he talked about it like a constellation. I love constellations. I have one on my arm, and a little tattoo there. A constellation, like I think we all can agree, like they're just stars. And someone somewhere said, oh, that one looks like a guy holding a bow and arrow. And your brain can say, oh yeah, I can totally see it. But really, if a person had never seen someone holding a bow and arrow, would they see that when they see the constellation? When I went to the Southern Hemisphere for a couple of months a few years ago, I made a point to look at the night sky, and it was different constellations and things look different. And I was like, how is that a turtle? I'm not seeing that at all. And so his point being, pain is like that. It's a bunch of stuff that just all happens to maybe be like near each other, kind of, or not. Because some of the constellations, it like goes way off to one side and then comes back. And you're like, why did you include that star in the constellation? It's like that. There's all these things that don't look like a picture until they kind of coalesce together. And they happen to form, in this case, the picture of pain for you. But for someone else, it's going to look totally different. And that's with pain. People are like, well, my low back hurts. There must be a problem in my low back. Maybe. But also what's more accurate is that there's a lot of things that make you up. And we need to investigate a whole bunch of them to try to see if we can tease apart, like what's really accurate about what you're feeling and what's really going on in there. And the truth is, we may not even know what's accurate when it comes to pain. And that's okay. Being able to accept that, like your question about, does everyone hate me? You may not know if they do. Maybe they do. Maybe you did something and no one told you. And you're like, wow, everyone thinks I'm a jerk and I totally didn't know. But the point is, you're not going to know. So you may as well operate assuming probably that's not accurate or true. And with our bodies, it's the same thing. Maybe you have a herniated disc that is contributing to your pain, but maybe not. So like, let's look at all the things we can do to create a new constellation that doesn't look like pain for you, that actually looks like something you can work with, something you can feel strong in, something you can feel confident about. So I like it. I like accurate. That's such a good word. I like that.
So what we like talking about good trouble. What does it mean to you when you hear the phrase good trouble? And how would, in your opinion, what good trouble are you causing?
I want to hear your guys' answer for this too. I think this is such a good question. To me, good trouble is becoming confident in your body autonomy, to know what is right for you, and to know when to trust an expert and listen to them and take their opinion and their wisdom, and when your own wisdom and opinion is what's needed. I think I remember learning about body autonomy when I was younger, and like that means, wow, you know what's right for you. I had not heard that word until like sometime in high school. And I was like, oh, wow, neat. That's a cool thing. Yeah, I always want to know what's right for me. And unfortunately, like we talked about earlier, much of the world seems to be kind of set up so that other people know better than you about everything. And I hate that, because yes, other people might know things and those things might be useful for you, but they never know better than you. And I think when you have someone who's like, yeah, cool, thanks for the knowledge, I totally appreciate that, I'm going to make my choice because I know me and I trust me to make the right choice. I also trust me to maybe make the wrong choice. I own that. Like people have lots of strong opinions and we all blast them on the internet all the time. Right. But when Steve Jobs was a good example of this, and many others as well, when I heard about people who had like really difficult diseases and issues they were dealing with, his was cancer. And you hear that they're going to take their own way to do a treatment. They're stopping regular treatment. They're going to do this other thing, more holistic thing or whatever, or just stop treatment altogether. Ever since I was young, I remember being like, wow, I have mad respect for that. Like that takes guts to say, maybe I'm making the wrong choice, but I accept the consequences that come with that. I accept that I'm living my one life that I have, and I'm going to live it on my terms. I think that's like amazing and courageous. And hopefully we don't ever have to face some of these really difficult diseases, but we might, because they are out there, and some of us are going to develop genetic conditions, bad luck with cancer. Like we've talked about, lots of bad things can happen. But I think good trouble is saying, I know what's right for my body. I'm confident in the choices I make, and I will stand in that no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Ron, you go first.
Well, mine's not completely different from what you're talking about. My journey with the medical system was more about women's health. And any of the hormonal issues that I was facing was met with, well, here, take these antidepressants. I'm like, cool, I'm not depressed. Turns out I was in perimenopause, but I wasn't depressed. And like you said, I knew that wasn't the right thing. And just learning to take control, like you said, for yourself, and having just the knowledge to advocate for yourself, even just this smallest bit of understanding, so that you can find the right person to help you. You might not know all the answers, but you know when something's not right, right? Like when my doctor, she asked me, she did no tests, she asked me no questions about diet, lifestyle, anything like that. Her answer, in our 7-minute appointment, was to write me a prescription for antidepressants. And I came to see her for all of a sudden developed insomnia. And so knowing when I got back to my car that like, this is not right. I know this isn't right. I'm feeling pretty shitty because I haven't slept for a few weeks, but I'm not depressed. And I don't want to add that, like taking an antidepressant, which I, was told that I can't stop taking it without them weaning me off of it. I'm like, why would I add this other problem, another layer of problem, and this chemical dependency when I still don't know what the problem is? So for me, creating good trouble is, advocating for yourself, and learning to say no when something doesn't feel right. So yeah, very similar to what you said.
I'm so sorry you experienced that. And I'm so glad you're where you are now. I can relate entirely. And it just breaks my heart when I hear these stories, because again, you have to assume people are all meaning well, right? And there's limits to, like you said, the 7-minute appointment. Like, what are you going to do in 7 minutes that's actually useful? But that's the way the system works, right?
Yeah.
But thank God you've listened to that. I've had several clients who did feel that same feeling, like something's not right. And they just, for whatever reason, weren't capable of going, I'm going to wait. And they ended up going down a path and then realizing later, oh, wait a minute, I need to backpedal back because I was right. That didn't feel right, whatever they were dealing with their medical system or their health. And so I'm really glad that you did that, because, oh my God.
Well, and that led me to, what I'm doing today with women. And it's so common for women to go into, the doctors with the medical issues, but like, especially with like hormone health, and the Band-Aid is just the birth control pill. And if I could just like teach women that the birth control pill is not going to solve your hormonal imbalances, and that there's more to it, even if they just listen to that and then find someone else to help them, then my job is done, right? Like, these aren't the Band-Aid solutions just to turn off what's naturally going on in your body, without addressing any of the root causes. So
yeah, I love that. What about you, Kristen?
Well, if we go back a little bit, when I was younger, I didn't talk when I was in school. Well, in kindergarten, I specifically didn't talk. I was paid to talk. Ended up leading to my teacher. My teacher, I guess, wanted to put me in special education. Mom's like, she talks fine all the time at home. She's not talking in school. So I did end up going to a child psychologist for a couple of years, though. Was bribed to talk, and anyway, along the journey of like, took me forever to find my voice. And then as I became a teacher, I had a few kids that were a lot like me in my classroom. And the best thing I could do for them was to give them what I needed, which was somebody to tell them it was safe to talk when they felt comfortable, and that there would be times where I needed them to give me an answer and I'd let them know. And other times where it's like, okay, if you need to nod your head, shake your like shake or nod for giving me an answer, or whisper, it's okay. And giving them that freedom, that safety to use their voice as they wanted. They came out of their shells really fast. And I was like, man, I wish I wish that I had that, because it took me years and years and years to figure out how to find my voice. And along that finding my voice, I learned a lot of tools through like personal development tools, how my language was really working against me for a while. And then once I learned how to use it for me, it changed a lot for me. It changed a lot within my classroom. And so now the good trouble I'm creating is to help kids, help parents and educators gain tools, but to pass them on through to the kids, giving them the tools now, so that when they're grown up, they have the tools that are there, and hopefully it helps them navigate the world a lot faster than it took for me. So yeah, my causing good trouble with writing a book about the power of our words, and really focusing on passing those tools to the younger generation so that they can have that, have what I wish I had when I was that age.
Wow, we're like 3 examples, which everybody is an example listening. Like you're all an example, but like 3 examples right here of like, you take your challenge that you faced, one of your big hardships, and we didn't go through those hardships being like, I'm going to use this to help people. We were probably in the middle of it being like, what is going on? This is horrible. I hate all of this. Oh my God, no one's helping me. There is no resource that I can go to. So, but once we got through the worst of it, it does what it does inside of you, and it starts turning you into something and making it so that this just naturally spills out of you. I mean, I can't assume, but I would hedge a bet that you both weren't like, since I have this challenge, I'm going to pivot my existing career into this thing that I did when I was younger, or experienced when I was younger. You probably just naturally became someone who shared this and created books or products or coaching or speaking or whatever around it. And that's what challenges do for us. And when we have body challenges, whether it's, oh, now I know how to fix low back pain, my low back pain, because I went through it, or it's through the low back pain, I learned XYZ trait that is not physical or tangible. Those things are helping you. And I know that it's so trite to say like, all your challenges are making you better, but they are. And so when my folks who come to me are like, yeah, my knee really hurts, I'm always like, I'm so sorry. What are we doing about it? This is great. What a great opportunity we have in front of us. And in fact, we don't call them weaknesses or bad sides or bad knee. We call it an area of opportunity, because it's not just an opportunity to fix your knee or your low back and then get strong. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to become who you are meant to be. It's an opportunity to face some of your junk that you got in your closet, like the negative beliefs or feeling like, I can't do this. It's too hard for me. I'm not someone who's successful. And to face all that stuff. And like, what an opportunity you've been presented with. Why would you waste it?
Absolutely. So where can our listeners go to find out more about you?
Oh, well, I would love if folks came to visit me at theunbreakablebody.com. They can check out me, my work. It probably also has the links to the socials. You know how it is. Like, you're all over the internet. So really, if people could just like web search you, they'll probably find it. But like, I'm on Instagram as Kate Galliet, and I'm on Facebook as the same. I have a second website called Fit for Real Life, where I write about more of the life stuff I'm doing to engage in all the stuff we've talked about. So folks can come check me out there, but theunbreakablebody.com is a good jump off point.
Awesome.
And then before we go on to the wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to touch on that we haven't talked about yet?
Gosh, I mean, do we have all day? No, I love the conversation we've had so far because it's really the juicy stuff. It's not like, so what do we do for foot pain? Which is important. That is important for sure. That's the technical part of it. But like the technical part of it isn't going to get you very far if you aren't also like ruminating on these things that we're talking about and these experiences we've been sharing. So I've really enjoyed everything we've talked about so far. And I think I think this is beautiful.
Awesome. So how would you recommend our listeners go about starting their own pirate life?
I think the first thing that someone can do is start to become an explorer of their body and their life. And what I mean by explorer is imagine you landed on a planet and nobody's ever been there before. Like literally no one, not even Elon Musk. Okay. No one. And no one else is ever coming, ever. That's your body. You live in this body. No one else is coming. And it's your job to figure out how to make life here inhabitable. To do that, you need to figure out what's here, what's not here. What can you make use of? How can you be creative with what you've been given on this little body planet that you're living on? And so start exploring and just start by like, what would you do if you were walking around on this new planet, exploring the ecosystem that's here? You'd probably notice the trees, the smell of the air, or if there even is air, the plants, the grass, the animals. You would really be paying attention. Do the same thing with your body. And I think you'll be amazed at what you start to notice, which you can then use to start taking action about what you might like to change and what you might like to improve. So I think if you start there by being an explorer of your body, yeah,
it's great advice.
And okay, so we've realized we're getting to the end of having pirate jokes because after 50 some odd episodes, we're running out. However, you gave us a joke and I want to hear you tell it. Do you remember what your joke was?
No, what was the joke I sent to you? I was like, I learned it like that week. Oh my God. Tell me the joke. I'll laugh. Tell me because I'll still laugh.
Okay. So it's, what does a sheep say when it steps in poop?
What?
Ew. Only you had to like a lot of ease after it.
I love terrible jokes like that. Thanks for telling it to me because it was still good. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I bet after this many episodes though, yeah, you probably are like pretty much out of pirate jokes.
I think so. It's rare that we get one that we haven't heard.
I bet. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'll have to like keep an eye out for that and send you some if I see any.
Thank you. Well, this has been such a great pleasure talking to you, Kate, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really had a great time talking with you both.